Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Sirhan on X, coming to you live from Cincinnati, Ohio, in the United States of America. Hope everyone had themselves a wonderful 21st of May, the calendar year 2025. Lots to get to, but let's get started on a bit of a somber note. I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way. Of course, news just broke the unfortunate passing of the standout NFL owner, Jim Irsay. You can say a lot of things about Jim Irsay, whatever, and it's probably true. But Jim Irsay had a passion and was an outspoken leader who basically loved the NFL and the sport of football, as well as the team he owned, the Indianapolis Colts, and basically leaves a strong community impact, as well as a strong commitment to philanthropy and mental health awareness. You know, his substance abuse battles were well chronicled, you know, among many other things. Bold decisions. Of course, the boldest one was when he released the great Peyton Manning after Manning's neck injury, which, you know, it's a topic for itself. I won't use today to discuss it for the obvious reasons. You can see a lot of things about Jim Irsay that are true, you know, good, bad, pretty, ugly, whatever. But it is still a sad day for the NFL and the NFL community when it lost one of its own owners, especially the guy of a caliber of Jim Irsay. May his family find peace and condolences in this difficult time. And Jim Irsay, you know, leaves a heck of a legacy for the Indianapolis Colts, gone too soon at the age of 65. Now let's go ahead and get right down to this. Lots to get to tonight. Before I proceed, I do apologize for any audio technical these of last night. I was made aware of it, so the whole thing had to be cut off. Start with the firestorm that took place today in the NFL owners meetings, and there's a lot of it. Of course, we know the number one rule. It was the tush push that needed 24 votes, only got 22. 10 of them didn't go through. I don't remember the 10 teams. I think a few of them, two of the top of my head, I know were the Baltimore Ravens and the Detroit Lions, among others. And we know this set sparks all over the NFL community, not just in the NFL, you know, networks, the NFL media, also the NFL fans, and as well as what took place in the NFL owners meeting, where apparently it was the owner, Jeffrey Lurie, who basically went on a rant and just put both the commissioner, Roger Goodell, and the Players Association member, Troy Vincent, on full blast, basically criticizing them for wanting them to just get rid of the play for whatever reason. I guess it's more for their own personal benefit. And of course, the Philadelphia Eagles social media accounts post a video montage of the tush push play. I think like 26 minutes of it, where basically they just throw it in everybody's face. As I said before, this was going to be fireworks and chaos all over the place. It's going to divide the NFL community because everyone had their opinions, both sides, good and bad. And I said all along, I didn't have a problem either way. But if you get yourself in 3rd and inches, 4th and inches, whether it be for first down or inside the 1 yard line for the touchdown, you get what you deserve. It's up to the defenses to stop the play. I mean, I've seen it stopped. Many people have seen it stopped, or at least slow down. But that's where we were stuck at when it comes to the NFL and the tush push play. I mean, it's going to still create chaos. I think banning it was just, a lot of people call it a stupid idea. I won't go that far. I don't think it was a good idea to at least put it out there. And the fact that both Roger Goodell and Troy Vincent pushed the narrative to want this thing banned, and having the owner, Jeffrey Lurie, just put Roger Goodell and Vincent on blast, we know what the results were going to be. I mean, let's put this like this again. It's 1st and 10. I mean, you have 10 yards to stop from a first down, or of course, 1st and goal to stop an offense to score a touchdown. If you let the offense get to a second and short, third and short, fourth and short, whatever the situation is, and you let them have the opportunity to run the play, they're going to run it, and defenses are going to get what they deserve. It's that simple. Because if you're good enough defensively, you should be able to prevent that from happening. Why don't you just think about that to begin with? That's the underlying issue. I get the other aspect of it. Everyone's saying they need to call this, they need to call that. So what? If you're gonna make the plays necessary to win the games, it's gonna be the defensive front. Good defenses do not allow offenses to get in that situation to where they can use a tush push. That's what everybody misses blatantly and vigilantly, and rather brazenly. But the rule's going to be fine. It's not going anywhere. Not enough votes to supersede with it. But as I said, if your defense is good enough, as some people say they are, they should be able to either stop it or at least slow it down, and to prevent offenses from getting a short yardage situations to where they're able to use that play. And we're not talking just the Philadelphia Eagles. I've seen a few other teams have similar resemblances of it. Not quite the way Philadelphia does, because when you have a two-headed monster like Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley, they can just run it anytime they want. But again, it's not going anywhere. And if you think it's going to be that easy to get rid of, think again. Because they had the chance to get rid of it today because they only needed 24 votes, only got 22. 10 voted to keep it. But we know it's not going anywhere. The Eagles are still going to use it. And guess what? Don't be surprised if other teams use it, because the precedent has been set across the entire NFL. When teams get in short yardage situations, they're going to use some form of the resemblance of the tush push. Some teams have the personnel for it, not just the Philadelphia Eagles. And we're going to see where this one goes. But if you don't want to be burnt on short yardage situations where it leads to first downs or touchdowns, how about play some defense to prevent it, or at least get off the field on third down? Because it's always third and inches or fourth and inches when this sort of thing happens. We'll see where this one goes. Because I said all along, it wasn't going anywhere. I think the idea of this was just a waste of time. I get the gripe on both sides of it, but it is what it is. Just don't allow yourself to get in on the defensive side to get offenses into the situation to where they can use it. How about thinking proactively first, especially with defensive coordinators having the everything out in the open now. Let's see where this one goes next season. Next up, another rule that I actually like this one. It was also approved a tweak in the onside kick. It can move up 1 yard, and now any team trailing can attempt it anytime they want. Not just the fourth quarter, which was the recent rule. Now it's tweaked to where you can do it anytime you want. I actually like this because now you might see this more frequently and more often during the game as a way to maintain or change momentum in an NFL game, which we know can go many different ways. Of course, how they use it is another story we can talk about at another day. But I like the fact they've expanded this to where it's not just a fourth quarter, simply because if you're talking about this in just a fourth quarter, I didn't think it was the right rule as it was last season. Now it's moves it up 1 yard closer. I don't remember what the yard line is now for it. You can attempt it anytime now. And hopefully increase the success rate. Last year was barely over 6%. But then again, it was seldom used. I can only think of maybe 2 or 3 instances where it was successful. But even historically, onside kicks are not I don't want to say they're well executed. But when the return team has their so-called hands team, which includes top flight, receivers or their best hands players on the field, the success rate is always going to be low regardless. But the fact now there's an opportunity there for it to be happening through any time during the game, not just the fourth quarter. I like the ruling. I like it tons. And the capper was, of course, the one that was withdrawn. Has been a bit of a hot topic over the last several years. It was the playoff seeding that goes from 1 to 7 by record versus division winners. Not enough support for it, which is what I expected at the end of the day. Don't have a problem either way. But as I said, if you're winning 11 to 12 games a season, that means you're winning games on the road. So if you're winning 11 to 12 games a season, and you have to play a playoff game on the road, you should be able to win the game on the road against the opponent who was, 7-9 or 8-8. Maybe the perfect example was a few years ago when the Dallas Cowboys traveled to Tampa Bay and just demolished Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, I think, had an 8-9 record, and Dallas was like 11-6 or something like that. That's how you take care of business. If you're winning 11 to 12 games, that means you're winning on the road, and that's how ending's going to be, and that's how it's supposed to be. Taking care of business, whether it be at home or on the road. So, again, I didn't expect that rule to pass. I'm a little surprised it didn't make it through, but I guess there wasn't enough support for it to go through. So, I guess it was the Lions that presented it, and they eventually withdrew it. Of course, more rules coming here from now to the time of the kickoff, because we know the NFL doesn't like to stand pat because things are going good. They're the perfect example of fix something that isn't broke, because that's what the NFL is trying to do, especially with the rules over the past several years. I can go on and on. A lot of people can go on and on about it, but that's what it is at this point. And speaking of the NFL, we're going to touch base here in Cincinnati. It was yesterday, after the news that broke out that Shamar Stewart, the first-round draft pick of the Bengals, was holding out for a draft pick. It was originally reported by Jordan Schultz. I think it works for the Schultz report. Let me type this up here. I'm going to do this as we're going along here. Yeah, he was the one that reported. No, that's not the one. Forgive me here. Yeah, it's part of the Schultz report. He was the one that reported it. And now all of a sudden, Bengals beat writer and member of the so-called Bengals pod, one of the biggest cowards in Cincinnati named Kelsey Conway, took exception to it. And I'm going to pull, if I can pull this up here, I'm going to read the exact quote from Conway because she makes a fool of herself for the 1 millionth time. Yeah, here we go. See if we pull it up here. Basically, she wants credit for all of this that happened. Here, the problem is Jordan Schultz was the one that reported. Kelsey Conway is one of those cowards who takes offense when she's beaten to the punch, and that's what happened here. That's a Kelsey Conway motto here in Cincinnati. Always has been, always will be. I'll give her credit for one thing and one thing only. Unlike a lot of the Bengals super fans over here, she doesn't ride that particular bandwagon. She goes her own route. But her arrogance and her cowardice and her narcissism is always in her way. She's basically the Angel Reese of Cincinnati beat writing, especially when it comes to the Cincinnati Bengals and how she carries herself, because yours truly had a chance to witness her act quite a few times. One of the real cowards in Cincinnati. And when I always talk about the Cincinnati media, how filled with diluted cheerleaders and in some cases, diluted morons and arrogant cowards, etc., etc., Kelsey Conway of the Cincinnati Enquirer is on that list. She knows her stuff. I'll give her that, but that's the only thing I'm giving her. She's one of those ones when she's beaten to the punch, just like she's basically like the Mike Florio of Cincinnati beat writing. If you guys in the NFL community know how Mike Florio is, Kelsey Conway is the Mike Florio of Cincinnati beat writing. She's just one of the most god-awful human beings you could ever know or have on your podcast. I see a lot of you guys in Cincinnati have her on. Can't believe, especially some of the more credible ones who I follow and trust, will resort to that low of a level to bring someone like Kelsey Conway onto your podcast or your shows or whatever, because you guys can do better than having Kelsey Conway on there because of how she conducts herself, how she carries herself, how much of arrogance she shows every time she opens her mouth, every time she tweets. And basically, Jordan Schultz gave her a dose of her own medicine yesterday, and it was well-deserved, and it was a thing of beauty. Now, I'm not going to go as far as some of the Bengals fans had to say to her about that, because some of it's just outright degrading and despicable, because they're even worse than she is, and that's saying a whole lot. But Kelsey Conway is just a degrading human being herself, and watching Jordan Schultz beat her to the punch when it comes to the report of Shamar Stewart was a thing of beauty, because she got away with that sort of act forever. she's even worse than Mike Florio, and that's saying a whole lot. Everybody in the NFL community knows how bad Mike Florio is and how he can be when it comes to clickbait and, what do you call it? Engagement baiting or whatever the word they use in the social media era now. Kelsey Conway is the same way. Now she's resorted to turning off comments as a response to try and diffuse it, which shows her cowardice. Because I said all along, in my fight years, you are open to criticism both ways. If you resort to what Kelsey Conway does on her X account and turning off comments in response to anything that she posts, you're a bona fide coward. And that's what Kelsey Conway is, because she resorts to that, because she gets offended when someone beats her to the punch on the Cincinnati Bengals, and among many other things. She's just basically no good for the Bengals community. So watching Jordan Schultz give Kelsey Conway a dose of her own medicine yesterday was a thing of beauty, and I'm sitting back and I'm enjoying it. I actually met her person, not necessarily one you want to talk to. They talk about undesirables when it comes to women. She's on the top of that list. She's that bad. Now, speaking of the situation with Shamar Stewart and the current standout Trey Hendrickson, of course, Jordan Schultz was the first one to report this, that it was Shamar Stewart not participating because he wants a contract similar to what the previous Bengals draft picks have. And, of course, Trey Hendrickson, we know the story there. The contract that's all over the place. He wants apparently an offer of $28 million was presented to him. How the heck do you go through an off season when you have a top 5 edge rusher and supposedly the guy who's going to replace him once Trey Hendrickson leaves, have them both hold out? How does that happen? You want to talk about an off-season botch? They just did it. Now, granted, I'm not giving Hendrickson or Stewart the time of day, because I think they're as every bit as guilty as they're on their end as every bit as when it comes to the Bengals fans and the super fans and the ownership. But how do you botch not just, you had 2 years to take care of the Trey Hendrickson situation. Everybody knows this. He had 2 years. He signed a 1-year deal a couple years ago. That 1-year deal is actually this season where he's paid somewhere around $18 million. But you draft Shamar Stewart, his replacement, and you're botching that. What exactly is going on? I mean, everyone's trying to have their own conclusions. Everyone's trying to drive their own conclusions. It is basically just the case of one of the most irresponsible things I have ever seen. And this goes back to when the current ownership took over the Cincinnati Bengals back in 1990. I mean, it's been that way forever and ever and ever. Everybody here knows about the fiasco with Carson Palmer, how that turned up. Everybody knows about the podcast Andrew Whitworth had about the Bengals ownership, where he just kindly broke down just how pathetically bad the Bengals ownership was when it comes to contract negotiations and guaranteed dollars. Same thing happened a few years ago with standout safety Jesse Bates. They had a chance to rectify that situation, and they lowballed him to where Bates just basically went out the door and is just balling over there in Atlanta right now. And they waited too long to get the whole shebang with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. Their deal's done. That should have been done long before they did it. And not to mention, instead of giving that money to Trey Hendrickson, you know what they did 3 years ago? They signed one of the worst left tackles of the modern time in Orlando Brown Jr. That money they gave to Orlando Brown Jr. could have easily gone to Trey Hendrickson. But no, they wanted to sign a low-level left tackle in Orlando Brown Jr. to where it sets off a Cincinnati party at the banks and the Cincinnati social media party all over the Facebook and Twitter platforms. And now, this is what happened as a result. You talk about intentional mismanagement. I mean, if you're in a leadership or management role, and I'll say I'm in one right now, and I'm still learning the curve. If you're in a management role and you're finding ways to totally mismanage a golden opportunity time after time after time, and it's not just once, it's repetitive. You continue to mismanage it. What does it say about you at the end of the day? Because that is exactly what's going on at Cincinnati, and it's been that way for 3 decades. Again, I'm not one of these insiders that knows all the details, because I think going that far is just for morons who have low quality lifestyles, especially in Cincinnati and the Bengals fans who live in their mama's basements. I just read and I just analyze. And the thing is, they make it so easy for me. So easy for me to see it. So easy for me to analyze it. So easy for me to break it down. It's simple. You're blowing it again. You're 2 years removed from a terrific win streak. Granted, it ended when you lost to Kansas City in the 22 AFC title game. That's because Bengals fans carry themselves like a bunch of cowards, as they always do. That includes the mayor, Aftab Purvell. Everybody knows what he did prior to that AFC title game, to where Travis Kelsey just went all Dwayne Johnson on them, saying, know your role and shut your mouth, which something Purvell should have done a long time ago. But how do you botch such a golden opportunity by letting key piece after key piece after key piece walk the way you do? And it's not the fact you let them walk. It's the fact that you let them walk you effortlessly without caring, and you basically get almost next to nothing in return. How do you botch that? It's just a sad story. I'm sorry. I mean, I want to see a successful team here in Cincinnati, but at this rate, we'll just wait till everything comes through, because I'm going to have a lot to say about that. I'm not going to talk about it today because I have so much other stuff to talk about. But it goes to show you just how you mismanage at high levels. And now you came out earlier today in the part of the stadium deal, which again is another fight between the Cincinnati Bengals and Hamilton County, where the Hamilton County prosecutors blunt told you openly you're acting in bad faith and you felt like the need to get defensive. You're acting in bad faith all the way around, and it's been that way since 1990. Anybody with a brain knows this. Let's see what happens moving forward, because everything right now is collapsing. You guys have 40 days to sign a lease extension to keep the team in Cincinnati, which I think they probably will. And while you're thinking about that, you also have a first-round draft pick and a top 5 edge rusher who basically played the same front line. You got to feed them, but you blew that a long time ago when you signed Orlando Brown Jr. How in the hell do you blatantly and openly and willingly, keyword is willingly, blow it the way you did this season? It's undescribable and incomprehensible with words, because that's what has happened big time with the Cincinnati Bengals. And when you guys miss potentially, keyword potentially, because it may possibly happen, miss the playoffs for the 3rd straight year and 4th in the last 6 years under the Joe Burrow era, is not going to be a good look. By the way, shout out Howard Geddes. I see you out there. I hope you're doing good. I could go on and on about how bad these guys are, but I'll make a show for that later on down the line. Now to some NBA history. We coined the phrase clutch a lot in all sports. We can throw it with everyone. We can throw it, with individuals, with teams, whatever circumstance, you name it. Maybe the most clutch run in NBA history took place 30 years ago in Phoenix in Game 7 of the Western Conference Semifinals between the Houston Rockets and the Phoenix Suns. It was a crazy series back and forth. It was 2-0 Phoenix. Houston comes back to tie it. It was 3-2 Phoenix. Houston needed to win the Game 6, got it, went to Game 7. And the story here is, with about 8 seconds left, it was the long pass from Robert Horry from near the 3-point line, almost cross-body to a wide-open Mario Elie for a wide-open, what turned out to be the wide-open game-winning 3-pointer to clinch the series for the Houston Rockets. And, of course, known as the kiss of death. The Houston Rockets advanced to the Western Conference Finals and, of course, eventually on the second of their back-to-back run. I bring this up because you're talking about a 6th seed in the Houston Rockets, who are defending champs, who somehow got in. And once they got in, they just took off. I mean, clutch play after clutch play after clutch play during that 1995 championship run. That's why they're forever known as Clutch City during that period. I mean, yeah, obviously, one of the 5 greatest big men to ever lace him up in Hakeem Olajuwon. He sets the tone, and he had the shooters like Vernon Maxwell, Robert Horry, Kenny Smith, Sam Cassell, and Mario Elie, just to name a few of them. And when they were open at the right time, they made the plays that mattered. That's why they went back-to-back. The capper was 30 years ago today in Phoenix when they had the wide open 3 by Mario Elie off a inside-out play from Olajuwon to Horry, who found a wide open Mario Elie because a defender cheated off of him. And when Elie hit the wide open 3 and blew the kiss of death at the Phoenix Suns, that was all she wrote. Because that was also the end of that mini 3-year run for the Phoenix Suns, who had a great 3-year period after they traded for Charles Barkley, because he could never get to that level ever again. But the Houston Rockets, back-to-back in the 94, 95, and during the run in 1995 as the 6th seed, start to finish, clutch play after clutch play, doing it in Utah, doing it in Phoenix, doing it in San Antonio, and doing it in the finals against the Orlando Magic, went on to one of the most crazy playoff runs maybe in NBA history, and it took place 30 years ago. That's why they're called Clutch City, and that's basically that run there, especially the Western Conference Finals where Hakeem Olajuwon just abused an all-time great in David Robinson, thrusted himself amongst one of the elite, high-level, all-time great big men, maybe the most skilled for his time. You can probably see Hakeem Olajuwon was ahead of his time with how well he played the center position during those 2 years when Houston went back-to-back. Because you want to talk about guys that were a problem, that's why they called him the Nigerian Nightmare. The dream shake in the post, his ability to actually dribble the ball, shoot the mid-range jumper, of course, the many moves in the baseline, ability to see the floor, the ability to pass, also the ability to have protect the rim. Also has some steals in there also because he was one of the 4 players in NBA history to record a quadruple-double. So it tells you the accolades and the skill level that Hakeem Olajuwon possessed throughout his career, especially when they went back-to-back. So it was 30 years ago this year, and in the second of their back-to-back run, known as Clutch City. The keystone was Game 7 in Phoenix when Robert Horry found Mario Elie for a wide-open 3 that no one could get anywhere near him, and that was all she wrote for the Phoenix Suns. And the Houston Rockets, of course, went on to beat the Spurs 4-2 in the Western Conference Finals and swept the Orlando Magic 4-0 to win the second of their championship. And as the great Rudy Tomjanovich said perfectly after that series, never underestimate the heart of a champion. During that second championship run, the Houston Rockets showed it and capped it off with the second straight NBA title. We're not going to see anything quite like that ever again because everybody's so fixated on seedings and home court advantages these days. Houston Rockets didn't need it when they won the 95 NBA Finals. It was just one of the most surreal things, maybe the most surreal run in NBA playoff history. Not saying it's the greatest because it's too much to consider, but probably surreal. They considered they were the 6th seed and were toying with not making the playoffs as a defending champion. They got in, but once they got in, flipped the switch, and the party was over. Now to the world of boxing, and it's official. It's the return of 46-year-old Manny Pacquiao fighting the fake welterweight champion Mario Barrios. The only caveat Pacquiao has in this is he's fighting the fake welterweight champion in Mario Barrios. I mean, he's not fighting Boots Ennis. He's not fighting Brian Norman Jr. He's fighting the fake welterweight champion Mario Barrios. But here's the problem. He's coming off an exhibition where he looked just pathetically awful. Okay, I'm going to say not be nice. Let's call it pathetically awful because that's how bad he looked in an exhibition. We're not talking about a real fight. In an exhibition. Last time he was in a real fight, it was Urianis Ugas. Ugas is basically Manny Pacquiao looks super old from like the 5th round on and just went on to win a wide unanimous decision. This came after his win over Keith Thurman in a fight where he wins the first 4 rounds and just hangs on the rest of the way. But this goes a lot of ways. I mean, maybe Manny Pacquiao can come back and rekindle the fire for one last time. As his trainer Freddie Roach would say, if there's one guy that can do it, it's Manny Pacquiao. Granted, he's fighting the fake welterweight champion Mario Barrios, but he's 46 years old, and he's coming off an exhibition where he just looked abysmal, and now he's going to get this title shot. Again, I can talk about the governing body, which I don't do on my shows because I think those guys are a waste of conversation and a waste of breath, simply because that is how the governing bodies work. That's why I call certain champions fake champions. It's because how the governing bodies work, and that's what Mario Barrios is. I don't know where this was going to come out of this. I mean, one of two things are going to happen. Either Pacquiao finds the fountain of youth and, pulls one out, goes to the well one last time, which he's done throughout his historic career, or he's just going to show his age, and the fake welterweight champion, Mario Barrios, is just going to have his way with him. My only guess to this is maybe Manny Pacquiao sees something nobody does, because he's been underdog in many fights before. I mean, I could bring up a whole list of fights that he's been involved in. I mean, big fight after big fight after big fight. Maybe he's leaning on big fight experience to pull him through against the fake welterweight champion, Mario Barrios. We'll see. But I'll just say this right now, it doesn't look good, given how he looked in an exhibition fight just recently. But come on, Manny Pacquiao. Hope you do it. And now the historical moment. This one took place 62 years ago today. Now, actually, check that, 60 years ago today. This was at Wembley Stadium in London, England. The second fight between Muhammad Ali and Henry Cooper. This was a rematch of one of the most bizarre endings to a fight that ever took place in their first encounter 3 years before, when Henry Cooper floored Muhammad Ali in the end of the fourth round. Looked like he was going to come back to win by knockout. But out of nowhere, the glove rips on Muhammad Ali, and they had to change the gloves. And after they changed the gloves, we had a different fight. And Muhammad Ali just battered Henry Cooper to a fifth-round stoppage win. The first fight was his last fight before the two-fight series he had with Sonny Liston back in 1964 and 1965. So we fast forward to 1966, where Ali and Cooper have at it again. This time, it's the fact that Ali was able to rectify the wrong and basically just gave Cooper a boxing lesson for the first 5 rounds till the end of the 6th round, where the fight was stopped because Henry Cooper was bleeding profusely. Henry Cooper was a very, very solid fighter, people. I mean, he has a nice resume himself, especially when you talk about some of the great fighters that come out of London at that time. But when you're messing with the great Muhammad Ali, it's a different story. But Muhammad Ali, by his own admission, both fights openly admitted, saying, I underestimated Henry Cooper, which basically he did in the first fight because he was floored, hurt, looked like on his way to being knocked out before the whole glove fiasco, which we know in the first fight, the glove fiasco that took place between Ali and Cooper set off many, many conspiracy theories as to why and how it happened. But Ali got the rematch, and when he got the rematch, he basically handled business, just got rid of Cooper in 6 rounds, just turned his face into a bloody mess. Henry Cooper is still a solid heavyweight, maybe one of the top 20 all-time to come out of England in that division. But, he was over his head against Ali, who was basically rolling at that point after he made Sonny Liston quit on the stool in the first of their 2 fights. I mean, just a night for Muhammad Ali. Of course, part of the long reign he had. Shortly thereafter, stripped for reasons we know what they are. I don't talk about those on my platform. And the record of the 3-time undisputed, legit heavyweight champion, which no one's going to touch. But Muhammad Ali, in the second fight against Henry Cooper, handled business without controversy, stopping him in 6 rounds to retain his world heavyweight championship. Actually, a decent fight. Just Cooper was in over his head, and Ali just said, the heck with it. I'm taking over. From non-controversy to controversy. I can point two of them with this individual, but I'm going to point to the most significant one here. This took place at the Reno Sparks Convention Center in Reno, Nevada on free TV. For all you morons out here who complain about the streaming sites and whatever, this was back in the 80s when free TV was the main platform. NBC, ABC, CBS. This was on NBC Sports World. Marv Albert, Freddie Pacheco calling the fight with Dick Enberg on the top. Oh my, that's that great Dick Enberg. It was really the final defense of Larry Holmes' reign as the heavyweight champion when he fought a relatively unknown Carl the Truth Williams in a fight that basically Larry Holmes just showed his downturn. Carl Williams took advantage of the opportunity, basically giving Holmes a boxing lesson, basically the same way Larry Holmes used to do to people. But the judges found some way somehow to crown Larry Holmes the winner in a very controversial decision win. I bring this up because you're talking about the second longest reign in heavyweight championship boxing history in Larry Holmes from 78 to 85, 7.5 years, 20 successful title defenses. This was the end because it was after this. He had the two losses to Michael Spinks, which cost him his heavyweight championship. But nonetheless, still a terrific career. You're talking about top 7 all-time great heavyweight. But for Carl Williams, maybe the not being rewarded the decision maybe bothered him more than people think, because he had a very erratic and inconsistent career, even though he was not a great heavyweight, but a pretty solid heavyweight. I mean, fought a lot of who's. I mean, Jesse Ferguson and Mike Weaver, among many others, Frank Bruno, Mike Tyson, list goes on, Tommy Morrison. But it was on this night where Carl Williams showed the potential he could have had, because he basically gave Larry Holmes a virtual boxing lesson, but somehow the judges saw this fight for Larry Holmes. Of course, this comes exactly 2 years after another gift decision Holmes had when he fought terrible Tim Witherspoon in a fight where Witherspoon had Holmes hurt on many of occasions, and really is more of a closer fight than the Williams fight. That one I thought was more of a toss-up between the two. Could have gone either way. But yes, Carl Williams was victimized by bad politics when he fought Larry Holmes for his heavyweight championship, because he won at least 11 of the 15 rounds. I mean, even the commentators, as the fight went on, basically talked about the end of Larry Holmes' reign and that it's time for the new reign of Carl Williams. But some way, somehow, the judges thought Larry Holmes did enough to win, which is something nobody can legitimately explain many years later. I mean, it's part of boxing, isn't it? Bad decisions, good decisions, whatever. Now to a wild 2-fight series in and out of the ring. Not just in the ring, but also out of it. This was Mike Tyson taking on Mitch Bloodgreen. Let's start with the in the ring part first. I mean, it was an all New York showdown where both guys are just despising one another. They never liked each other. I mean, you know the story with this one. This was after Mike Tyson's knockout streak ended against James Quick Tillis. Remember, he had the 19 straight knockouts before he fought Tillis, and Tillis took him the distance. Question was, could he get back on the knockout streak again against a tough, solid Mitch Bloodgreen? Tyson just, if you like to see flying sweat and flying dreadlocks and flying curly hair all over the ring, you want to watch this, because that's what Mike Tyson did to Mitch Bloodgreen's face and hair. It was sweat all over the place. It was curly hair all over the place, curly gel all over the place, dreadlocks all over the place, because Mike Tyson just laid it down for 10 rounds on a Mitch Bloodgreen and basically beat him all over the place to a unanimous decision win. I mean, Green at least found a way to survive the 10 rounds, but Mike Tyson got the decision because he basically won every minute of every round. I mean, he gave Mitch Bloodgreen a brutal beating. The best part of this took place 2.5 years later outside a clothing store in New York City, where both Mike Tyson and Mitch Bloodgreen met head-to-head. And there were rumors flying around about Mitch Bloodgreen being on angel dust or PCP, and Mike Tyson being intoxicated himself. Because Bloodgreen felt the need to confront Mike Tyson due to the fact that he felt he was robbed by Tyson and King when it came to the pay for their fight. Mike Tyson did everything he could to avoid it. What happens? They meet outside I think it's called the Dapper's Den out there in New York City. Actually, there's a photo that was photocropped that was presented in the internet not too long ago with Mike Tyson coming out of the car ready to fight, and Mitch Bloodgreen just sitting there looking at it like, what in the hell did I get myself into? Because the second Mike Tyson got out of that car, Mitch Bloodgreen's face was turned inside out. I mean, he basically had a big scar in the middle of his nose. His left eye was swollen. I mean, almost super, I wouldn't say it was swollen shut. It was super glued shut. I mean, there was no way he could open it. And what Mike Tyson did to Mitch Bloodgreen on the streets on that night, I mean, his hand was so wrapped, you thought his hand was wrapped inside a pillow. I mean, his hand was broken, just pummeled, and I mean pummeled Mitch Bloodgreen on the streets because Mitch Bloodgreen just felt the need to confront Mike Tyson and open his mouth, which we know that's what Mitch Bloodgreen loves to do. And when that happened, that was basically the end game for Mitch Bloodgreen. Of course, it helped the fact that from the in-ring fight to the outside the ring fight, that Bloodgreen decided to call Mike Tyson among many things, Michelle Tyson and a sissy. We know that did not sit well with Mike Tyson. So it's safe to say Mitch Bloodgreen got his in the ring in 86 and outside the ring in 88. He should know better than to mess with the so-called baddest man on the planet at the time in Mike Tyson, because he got it in more ways than one, in more areas than one, in more locations than one, in the ring and outside the ring. Surprisingly, Mitch Bloodgreen was still alive after that because his face was just turned inside out. Sheesh. First, I had to talk about Holmes Burbick like this. Now I have to talk about Tyson Green, who's going to be the next two fight series I'm going to be talking about in and out of the ring. I'm not talking about two fights in the ring. One fight in and one fight out. Crazy. And we talked about network TV just a minute ago. Maybe the end of network TV as we knew it was not really the end of it, but it was starting to come to the end. Took place at the Reno Sparks Convention Center 35 years ago. Let me remind you, the two guys I'm going to mention aren't going to make the all-time great ballads or going to be the household names, but had a great three-fight series all on network TV, and the third fight was basically a doozy. It was a West Coast standout, Tony Lopez beating John-John Molina to recapture the Super Featherweight Championship for a second time after he lost it to Molina. And there's the first fight, basically, you could probably say Molina should have won the fight, but the judges gave it to Tony Lopez on a fallacy because they were fighting in Sacramento. Because sometimes there is some hometown cooking at Tony Lopez. This coming from a Tony Lopez fan myself. So they have the rematch in Arco Arena again. And John-John Molina just delivers a beating to Tony Lopez. Both his eyes were nearly swollen shut. But as the fight was stopped, basically the Sacramento fans were just littering the ring with beer bottles, debris, among many other things. And so they have a third fight. They moved it to Reno. Originally supposed to be in Sacramento, but the Molina camp had security concerns with what happened. The second fight with all the beer bottles thrown into the ring. And so we have this third fight that took place in Reno, Nevada. Story with this one, Molina got off to the decent start, but the grit and grind warrior attitude of Tony Lopez just kept on and kept on and kept on. Had Molina hurt thoroughly in the second half of the fight, had the knockdown in the 11th round, and won a split decision to win the second of his two super featherweight championships, and to close out the trilogy with John-John Molina 2-1. Again, no one's going to put this in the Ali Frazier, Holyfield, Bowe, or Barrera Morales trilogies, obviously so. But it's actually a solid one, especially for ones that like to, back then, pick up the channel and just watch the fight on network TV. It might just back in the 80s when you had the bunny ears as long as this, where you have like 80 layers of aluminum foil on it to prevent your TV from watching static. And that's what this trilogy was. And you would talk about made-for-TV fighters who knew how to deliver the action on free TV. At a time when Marv Albert and Freddie Pacheco were calling the fight like they did with this one, Tony the Tiger Lopez knew how to sell the crowd, especially in the West Coast, because he always packed a house on the West Side. Because there was apparently a bus that came from Sacramento to Reno, Nevada with a boatload of Lopez fans, and they were chanting Tiger, Tiger, Tiger all the way through. But we talk about made-for-TV fighters who, when you turn on the TV and you wanted to watch, because he knew how to deliver the action, Tony the Tiger Lopez was it in the back end of the 80s and throughout the early 90s. Especially when NBC was one of the premier networks. He was on it, and whenever he was on it, fans wanted to watch because he brought the action. Blood and guts, rough, tough fighter, better skill than people think. We could probably say a poor man's Bobby Chacon is what Tony Lopez was. If you fight followers know how Bobby Chacon was back in his day, you could probably say Lopez was similar, not quite the Chacon level, but was pretty darn good. I mean, 3 world titles in 2 weight divisions, went cross country to knock out Joey Gamache to win his 3rd world title. But a gritty, tough warrior was a gritty, tough warrior was Tony the Tiger Lopez. When network TV was the premier platform for boxing, especially NBC, where he fought most of his fights, and you knew when he turned it on, you was going to get the action because he delivered it. I mean, he actually headlined a couple of pay-per-views later on down the line, minor pay-per-views, but his niche and his era will always be one that you would turn on network TV to. When network TV was just the main platform back then, Tony the Tiger Lopez knew how to deliver the action. I mean, he got beat up himself, obviously, but that's who he was. I mean, maybe a West Coast version of what Vinny Pazienza was out East. If you remember how Vinny Pazienza was, Tony the Tiger Lopez was just a phenomenal fighter. Delivered the action. I mean, a lot of solid wins against tier 2 or tier 3 opposition. The tier 1 guy he fought was Julio Cesar Chavez, but no shame in that. So that's how the fight was. It was 35 years ago, network TV, NBC. When you wanted to watch free boxing, you got the 3rd fight between Tony Lopez and John-John Molina. You got a lot of Tony Lopez at a time when network TV was a thing. And Lopez got the split decision win to win a 2nd world championship at the super featherweight division. Boy, I miss those days. And I conclude on another historical night. And this one was actually one of those fights where the pay-per-view was $20, which I think is like $25 if I'm correct. But when you spend it, you certainly had your money's worth on this one. It was Evander Holyfield in his first fight, coming back after all the crap he went through after the loss of Michael Moore, the faith healer, the trip to the Mayo Clinic and the Nevada State Athletic Commission. His first fight back gives a license to fight the tough, durable Ray Mercer. And Ray Mercer basically was a little more than a year and a half removed from an embarrassing performance in a draw to Marion Wilson, where he was just gift-wrapped a draw. Anyone who saw the fight knows Ray Mercer was given a gift. But Holyfield and Mercer, being the tough chin warriors that they both are, gave us a good heavyweight scrap. Basically, a better than expected heavyweight scrap because both guys were just giving and taking both ways. And it was a doozy to watch in a good way because it started out, Mercer looked like he was going to pull it off, controlled most of the first half of the fight, and built the early lead. But we know how Evander Holyfield is. Kept coming as the warrior. In the 9th round, the triple left hook that puts Ray Mercer down for the first time in Mercer's career. And both guys gave a great back and forth fight in the 10th round. And Evander Holyfield escapes with a narrow but correct unanimous decision win. This is probably one of those fights you can say was win-win. Because for Mercer, that was probably the best he looked since he obliterated Tommy Morrison 3.5 years before. I mean, you guys know what he did to Morrison on that night. And for Evander Holyfield, probably the best he looked since he beat Riddick Bowe the 2nd fight. And you know what he went through after he lost to Michael Moore. You know, the faith healer, all the obstacles to get a license in the state of Nevada or whatever to fight again and go to Mayo clinics. And still, Holyfield and Mercer put on a pretty good show and a pretty darn good heavyweight fight where both guys gave their best honest effort. And that was the epitome of who Evander Holyfield and Ray Mercer were. I mean, you can make any accusation about them you want. It doesn't matter. It doesn't turn the fact that they were both standout fighters. For Ray Mercer, probably say it was a case of a fighter who, after the Morrison fight, was basically intriguing, but also erratic and inconsistent. Because it was exactly a year later, he gave the same effort to Lennox Lewis in losing a decision, a fight that some people thought Mercer should have won. But after that, he did get a win over a faded Tim Witherspoon. But the downturn after that carried on. But we know how it ended for Evander Holyfield. Got the 3rd fight with Riddick Bowe where he got the brakes beaten off of him. But a year after that, pulverized Mike Tyson. We know what happened in the 2nd fight with the ear bite. Got a revenge win over Michael Moore. And the 2 fights with Lennox Lewis. But one thing you'd say about Two things you can say about Evander Holyfield and Ray Mercer. Neither guy ducked anyone, wanted to fight the best at their best. And when they fought, they always gave an honest effort. And when those two clashed 30 years ago in Atlantic City, it was a treat for the fans to watch. I mean, Ray Mercer, first half of the fight looked like he was going to win, but Evander Holyfield buckled down, won 4 of the last 5 rounds, including the knockdown, and walked away with a decision. Just a terrific fight between two terrific heavyweights. Boy, did I miss the heavyweight division when it was just like that. It was a thing of beauty. And I conclude on another somber note. This took place over the past couple of days in the world of boxing. May God rest the soul of the standout Nino Benvenuti, the 3-time world champion in 2 weight divisions, the super welterweight and twice at middleweight. Known for a 3-fight series with Emil Griffith. Had a solid run at the second tenure as a middleweight before he lost to the great Carlos Monzon. Won the world championship at super welterweight. Was rated at one point a top 10 all-time great middleweight. And we consider the guys in that division all-time, like a Sugar Ray Robinson, Carlos Monzon, Harry Greb, Marvin Hagler, among many others. To have his name mentioned in that category was something else. I mean, that's what Ring Magazine put Nino Benvenuti. Not only was he a terrific fighter, but also spent time in the acting field. And for a country in Italy, it didn't have much in terms of terrific boxing. Maybe one of the premier Italian fighters, maybe the greatest fighter to come out of Italy, and definitely one of the more talented European fighters and more accomplished ones during the 60s. And it was a sad loss for the boxing community. One of the true all-time greats, the great Nino Benvenuti. May God rest his soul, and may his family, friends, and the close ones, especially those in the boxing community, find time of solace for the standout Nino Benvenuti. I'll be talking about more of him down the road. He had some terrific fights. I mean, the footage is out there, especially over there in Europe, where, if I'm correct, I think he won not just the Italian championship, but also the European championship, which propelled him to the 3-fight series with Emil Griffith. And just a stellar middleweight career. I mean, if Ring Magazine puts you in the top 10 all time in that weight class, you did something right. And that's what Nino Benvenuti did. Rest in peace, Nino Benvenuti. And that'll wrap up this edition of Sirhan on X. I hope everyone out there has themselves a wonderful 21st of May 2025. I will be back after the weekend. And on Monday night, I do my institution of Unsolved Mysteries, because we're going to celebrate a mysterious night that took place in Lewiston, Maine many years ago. Fight followers, I think you know what I'm talking about. You're going to be surprised what I dug up when it came to what I'm going to talk about on Memorial Night. As always, make self-care your number one priority in life. Always take care of yourself first before you take care of anything else. If you don't take care of yourself first, nothing else matters. If you take care of yourself first, good things will come your way. Always focus on you and you first. Have a good rest of the night. Take care of yourselves. Enjoy the day. Enjoy the weekend. Happy Memorial Day to everybody out there. Thank you for those of your service on Memorial Day. I will be back Monday night, and God bless.